Good evening and welcome to the NFL Draft. Welcome football fans to the 2018 NFL Draft. Welcome to the 2020 NFL Draft.
You are listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Review. It's the online sports guys college football podcast where we talk about everything football. Usually it's college football, although the last episode, if you got to tune in, was college basketball.
Bless you.
That was my wife sneezing.
Yes, and she's all fired up about the NFL draft too.
Which is amazing because she's in another room on the other side of the room with a door between us.
The power of the sneeze, brother.
Yes. But
it's the pollen, buddy.
Oh, God, don't even get me started there. And pretty much everything is yellow in my house. Anyway, this week we're going to have a special episode. We're going to talk the NFL draft, which I guess technically, guys, it is college football because they are drafting college football players.
Yep.
Is this I'll start with a basic question. Do you guys get as hyped for the draft as Sports Talk Radio does, various sports websites and newspapers do? Or is it just kind of one of those interesting time killers in the middle at the end of April?
I think it's a time killer in the end of April. I mean, normally we would be gone through the depths of football withdrawals. But with the FCS, D2, D3 playing spring football, there is actually football out there. Of course, last couple of years we've had the AAF and the XFL too to quench that thirst. But again, the draft is nice. You know, I pay attention to what the Cowboys and the Chiefs do and some other teams. But I just don't. It just doesn't excite me. I like some of the soap opera that always seems to happen in the first round of the draft. And some of the craziness that sometimes happens. And, you know, I'm not a member of the fashion police, so I could care less what they're wearing. And basically it's a hat show, just like signing day. I mean, it's what it is. It's a glorified signing day.
Yeah, I mean, for me, right now, it's kind of something that you take a peek at casually, and I know that we'll get into probably the biggest subplots of the NFL draft, and it's always at the skill position. Specifically this year, it'll be a quarterback. Mm. But, you know, for me, it's kind of like I kind of liken it to the scene, the Alec Baldwin soliloquy in Glengarry Glen Ross. Until you get them to sign on the line, which is dotted, it is A always, B, B, C closing, ABC always be closing, always be closing. And until you get to the draft, when you've made the phone call, you picked up the receiver, or you've sent in the index card saying there's a trade, all this stuff right now is talk, and we sit here and we can look at the best case scenarios for individuals who can go to certain places. And I know that we'll talk about Wilkie's Cowboys and his Chiefs in a little bit. But for me, all of this stuff right now is a lot of folks posturing, and there's a lot of noise. Get me to the draft in and of itself. And for me, I like to see day 2 and day 3, because you always wonder about the athletes that aren't selected in day 1. Who drops? Mm-hmm. Why do they drop? And who's going to get bargains? That's what I'm looking at. I look at the bargain basement bin in day 2 and day 3.
Yeah. You know, it's part of the drama I was talking about. You have those players that, you know, they were targeted to be late first rounds, and all of a sudden they drop to the 3rd or 4th. And as to why that is, you know, I would wish that you remember back in the 1960s when the AFL was around and they didn't have the common draft, and you had players being hidden in hotel rooms and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, I'd love to see or some kind of rival league would come by and we'd have a draft like that.
I read about that stuff.
I know. I watched the documentary on it, and I mean, that would just amp this up to an 11. If you think about it, in the sports talk radio era and in the 24-hour cable and streaming sports channels, can you imagine what that was the NFL, AFL drafts of the early '60s, what that would be like in this era if there was a rival league that had the resources to compete with the NFL and went after these college players.
Yeah, almost a little bit like the ABA back in the 1970s, where they were pilfering NBA basketball players at that point in time. The fascinating thing to me has always been the cottage industry that's kind of popped up over the last decade or so with people making mock drafts. Because
I've heard of those.
if you read pretty much any website, any sports website, ESPN, CBS Sports, SI.com.
And they have their experts.
Sports. Everybody's got at least 2 to 3 experts, and every one of those experts has their own mock draft. And it's not just right before the draft where they do it. They start doing it like months in advance.
Yeah, they do it like right after the previous draft. Your too early mock draft for next year. They'll do those, yeah.
Never mind, you don't even know what the draft order is going to be.
No.
Nor what a given team is going to need at a given time. But
No.
it doesn't stop them from predicting it.
Nope.
And you listen to, if you're in an NFL town and you listen to sports talk radio, half of the conversation is about just that. What does the local NFL team need to draft? And everybody's an expert. I mean, to see a Todd McShay, Mel Kiper duel on SportsCenter, or to see the dueling NFL.com experts talking about, well, my mock draft 2.5, I've got Joe Smith going to the Minnesota Vikings and because they're going to make a trade with the Oakland Raiders in the 5th round that'll get a first-round draft pick next year.
Oh, my God.
How do you know all this stuff?
You don't. You're just throwing stuff up against the wall because you know that content has to be created. And so what you're doing is there are suppositions that are a part of this whole thing. Suppositions and assumptions and the creation of content. That's what it is. Until we get to this month of the year, everything from the end of football season, and I mean mainly that the time early February, when the season is over, not like when you start to see the draft order come out. And then, although folks will sit there and they'll do that when the draft order comes out at the end of the regular season, and then you wait for those playoff teams to get assembled in. As soon as that draft order pops up for the non-playoff teams, that's when this starts in earnest to create content so folks can sit there and lean into the next season. So that way you keep all of that creation momentum going, so you're not having any kind of a lag in your content, Wilkie. That's what it is for me.
Wilkie, it's a marketing gimmick, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And then, not only that, you got the pro days, you've got the combine in Indianapolis. People are just, I'll give it a token look. The combines just for the heck of it. If there's nothing else on, but I don't get into it. And the pro days are what they are. I mean, they're out there in shorts and a t-shirt, just throwing passes, and you're running their 40 times. I mean, that's all you see. You see the 40s, their shuttle runs. Which is all well and good, but that doesn't necessarily make you an all-pro football player. You're not gonna impress anybody.
Because on 3rd and 7, Wilkie, I want to know what your shuttle run is.
Exactly. I mean, it makes, I guess, for good theater for football fans that are just jonesing for something to watch and are so into their teams that they have to watch every player run their 40 and do their calisthenics, I guess. Exactly. The jumping jacks, touch your toes here and there. So it is what it is. I mean, it's for me, it's fun. It's fascinating. Not necessarily the acts of the draft or of the combines and the pro days. It's just the people that are so invested in them. Those are the guys that entertain me. Including the guys that do their mock drafts and and talk on sports radio all the time. I mean, it turns in just, background noise for me. And but the draft, especially in the first round, to me holds my attention because of the drama that sometimes we get out of that. A team will take a player they had nobody had him on the radar screen, and maybe a team in a lower position had it on the radar screen and figured they were going to get that. Now they got to scramble, and that's the fun part about the draft, is when you do have those surprises, and all of a sudden you see war rooms where people are throwing their hands up and pointing at each other and screaming and trying to come up, okay, what's our plan B? I mean, that's really what the fun on the draft is.
Another thing that's always stuck out to me, and we'll talk a little bit later in the show about this year's draft and the players and guys who are standouts and they're expected to go really high and after some great college football performances. But the one thing that's always jumped off the page to me is when you watch, like you were talking about the combine, and you see a guy run a 40-yard dash in track shoes from a sprint position with no football uniform on whatsoever, just shorts and a shirt. Yeah. And if they run a 4.45 instead of a 4.440 in the 40-yard dash, all of a sudden, he just cost himself draft position. Is there really a difference between in that 500ths of a second in a football player?
See, but I think that you've hit on the logic of the argument here, and that's something that when you're trying to spend millions of dollars on athletes, logic kind of goes out the window. That last time I checked, as I was saying, kind of half jokingly just a minute ago, on that 3rd and 7, I really want to know about your shuttle run. When you're in track shoes on turf, in a tank top and shorts, I'm going to take a look at your time, but that 500ths of a second, last time I checked, all that football gear is going to add about 10 pounds. You're naturally going to slow down anyway. I want to know what you can do as an athlete and have all of those mechanical measurements as a base, Wilkie. But for me, I know that you're looking at guys that want to spend a boatload of money on college prospects that get wrapped up in expectations that get tempered for some reason or another, like the 500ths of a second that we're talking about as the example, and things just go off the rails from there.
Yeah, I've always considered the combine like a beauty contest. People are impressed with how they fill out their shorts and their t-shirt and, what their biceps look like. To me, that's what it is. But, I always think of guys like Gil Brandt and Phil Savage, guys that have evaluated NFL talent and been highly successful at doing that. They're at the combine, and they're doing those things, but they're looking at things that the average football fan has no clue about. And, I would recommend, there's a book that Phil Savage came out with, I think it was called First and 10, First and Forever, or something like that. Fourth and Forever. I've got it in my closet over there. I'll grab it when we go to break.
Grab it in the commercial break.
But, and the influence that Gil Brandt had on Phil Savage as far as what the Cowboys looked at back in the 60s and 70s that were far advanced over every other team back then. And it's not just necessarily the way they ran their 40 time or bench pressed or whatever. It's like how they got in their stance and whether they had the explosion out of that stance and how long it took them to like an offensive lineman just to take that first step back. And if he was in position after that, I mean, little minutia things that would just bore the hell out of all of us. I'm fascinated by that stuff, so I really wouldn't be that bored. But there are things that they look at that we have no clue
but it's
what
that
they're
attention
looking at.
to detail that
Exactly.
you're talking about that is going to be key in a situation, because if you do the little things right, that's a lot of little things that can add up to a big thing that can mean that that's an important cog that you're looking for. It's the guy from the D2 school or the D3 school or the NAIA or the FCS that does those little things correctly.
Exactly. And
that's the difference.
and his body matured from the time he was 18 to now at 21, 22. Reason why he wasn't looked at a major college is because his body hadn't matured lately. Now his body matured, and yeah, there's limited facilities at those type of schools, but they're willing to take a chance on someone like that when they get him into an NFL program, and so yeah, there's those little things like that. The other thing that always kind of fascinates me with the draft is the influence, the outside influences. You know, the owners, well, give me some kind of fancy title like the player personnel director,
Director of player personnel,
or a consultant or whatever.
Oh, there you go, consultant.
Exactly. That are thinking, you know, owners obviously thinking about star power, who can fill some seats, sponsorships, those kind of things. I think that weighs into this draft more than we think. And I think the teams have been successful in the long term as far as staying up on top of the NFL and challenging for Super Bowls and division championships have been the ones that have kind of, you know, don't let that influence them as much, that have some solid personnel that look at the attention to details that we've talked about. But I'm always fascinated about the influences, the outside influences of the ownership group or the marketing group about how they can fill seats and those kind of things. I think those are more affect the draft than we think. And but again, I think it's the teams that whose evaluators have a lot of juice, whose GMs know what kind of player they need. Those are the ones that kind of stay consistent as far as winning and challenging for playoff spots or challenging for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I didn't want to cut you guys off, but the one thing that kept coming to mind when you were talking about the speed and the drills and the little isolated details like hand and foot speed is what a coach of mine used to call when I was a kid, gotcha speed.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much that it showed up on tape, but say you were a wide receiver and you didn't run that fast, except nobody could ever catch you on the field. You didn't show up on the 40 running an ungodly time, but nobody ever tackled you from behind. That kind of speed.
Right.
And those are the things that you look for. There are a lot of nuances that go way beyond anything that we could see or are looking for or even know to look for as fans when it comes to a football player. But you brought up another good point there when it comes to marquee and big name attachments. And I was going to kind of save this to the second half of the show, but I'll
tease it.
Yeah, tease it.
I'll get into it now because we haven't quite hit to halftime. Probably the one sure thing in the 2021 NFL draft is that the Jacksonville Jaguars are taking Trevor Lawrence. And this basically everything that you just said, Wilkie, about what they're looking for, the minutia, the tape, the attention to detail, things like that.
All the boxes.
Combined with all the marketing, marquee, saleability, getting people in to buy season tickets, it all wraps itself up in one 6'6", 200+ pound quarterback who played at Cartersville High School and Clemson University.
He deserves so much better than Urban Meyer.
Well, yeah, he checks all those boxes, Phil, and plus he won championships. Won the ACC every year, got a national championship his freshman year, always in the hunt for the national championship, which is what you want your quarterback to do, right? He was just a phenomenal college quarterback, NFL ready, had weapons, NFL caliber weapons around him, and faced some really salty defenses. You know, Alabama, they faced Alabama every year, and that's an NFL defense right there. But yeah, you know, I think that he's going to flourish under Urban Meyer. I think Urban Meyer he got this opportunity with the Jaguars, knowing that Trevor Lawrence is there, and now he has a franchise quarterback he can build that franchise around and make that team matter. And you know, I think he's going to I think I mentioned this in an early podcast. I think he's going to find the NFL much better than the college experience, Urban Meyer, because it's all about football now. It's not about having to recruit. It's not about, watching these 18 to 21-year-old boys and seeing if they stay on the straight and narrow. He's dealing with adults now. And I think that's going to be a breath of fresh air for Urban Meyer. And I think we're going to see a different coach out there because he's dealing with professionals now. And they're not going to take the shenanigans that he did at Florida and Ohio State. He's got to change because he's working with grown men now. And I think it's going to be a great marriage between the two. Just hope he stays away from injury. That's the only thing, because I'm not sure about that offensive line of Jacksonville right now.
I don't think we see Urban Meyer in season 3. I think that we've already seen Wilkie some chinks in the armor of Urban Meyer, who apparently was caught flat-footed by the idea of free agency and how you check in with agents and how you make sure that you can get everything done the second that the window opens up. I think that he'll continue to be frustrated by things. And I worry about how you're going to surround Trevor Lawrence if you're going to pick him up, first overall. Is it going to be a David Carr situation where he's running around for his life in this first year? Or is it a Troy Aikman situation where he's running around for his life and things can continue to improve? I'm hoping it's the latter. I have this sneaking suspicion it's the former, and that Coach Myers won't see season 3.
And the Jaguars they've signed quite a few players in the offseason, and there was some talent left over on offense. DJ Chark at wide receiver, Chenault at wide receiver, some kids that could play football. I can't remember the kid that developed for them at running back this season. The question is the offensive line. They've got some defensive players as well. I mean, with the amount of players that they were the amount of roster slots that they had available on that team and the amount of money they had to spend, the opportunity is there. They're probably not going to win the Super Bowl in Trevor Lawrence's first season. But really and truly, if you look at what he brings to the table, I think you're looking at Peyton Manning Part 2. I
hope you're right. And you're talking about James Robinson.
Yes.
At running back for Jacksonville. And you've also got Carlos Hyde, who's in-house, Dario Gunbowale, who's in-house. And, here's the offensive line. Cam Robinson, this is tackle to tackle. Cam Robinson, Andrew Norwell, Brandon Linder, A.J. Cann, Jawan Taylor. That's really not striking the fear of any defense if I'm staring at that offensive line right now. I just want Trevor Lawrence to stay upright as much as possible, but I think it's going to be a long year.
Well, it's going to be a learning curve for him too, because look, everybody's bigger, everybody's faster in the NFL. He's faced some elite defenses on the college level, but even on the college level, I mean, it's not the NFL. And he's even just reading the defense. That's going to be a steep learning curve for him. And now that I believe some of the preseason has been cut as well.
We're down season games instead of 4.
Right.
17-game regular season.
So that's where the scrimmage is. If they scrimmage other teams still, I'm not sure if that's even still in play under the collective bargaining agreement. But once he gets in there in live action for the first time, it's going to be a steep learning curve, and he may look comical at the beginning. I remember Peyton Manning did as well in his first few games as the Colts quarterback. Even John Elway had struggled when he finally got in for the Broncos, some comical moments. And that's going to happen. But once things slow down, look, the kid, John, you and I have been around him. The kid has all the tools. Mm-hmm. He's as sharp as anybody that I've ever been around. He's going to be fine. I don't see him being shell shocked. That's one thing. Troy Aikman. That's one reason why Steve Walsh came in for the Cowboys. Is Jimmy Johnson did not want Troy Aikman shell shocked, and that was going to be his future quarterback. It wasn't going to be Steve Walsh. I wouldn't be if Urban Meyer's smart and he's seeing some of that. That's why Tim Couch wasn't very good. He just became so shell shocked by the pass rush because he ran for his life and he never adjusted to that. And so if Urban Meyer does one thing smart, I guess it's to have a decent backup. They may have to start every now and then just to keep his franchise quarterback A, upright, and B, not panicking every time the middle linebacker or the defensive end is coming off the edge.
You saw my Dolphins do that this past year with Tua Tagovailoa.
Bringing in Fitzmagic?
Yeah, Fitzmagic started the season. Ryan Fitzpatrick started the season, played the first, I want to say, 6 or 7 games before they eased Tua in. And still, Fitzpatrick came in a couple times as a relief pitcher in some of those games.
Right.
They didn't try to overwhelm Tua with the speed of the game because over the years, every rookie NFL player that I talked to when I was back covering sports, every one of them said the biggest difference is the speed of the game.
Yeah.
And it takes time to adjust to that.
And not only the speed, but the violence too.
Yeah.
I mean, the three of us have been privileged to be on an NFL sideline during a game.
Oh,
We all marvel about how those guys survive.
Yeah. Well, because we always, and this is one of the misnomers that we always have to sit here and clarify. Football's not a contact sport; it's a collision sport. And when you have these young men who are 19, 20, 21 years old coming into the National Football League, it's a wake-up call. And I think that, to your point, guys, I think that having Gardner Minshew and his fantastic mullet that he is now developing, that is now aerodynamic, and the stash, but his mullet is now developing its own aerodynamic nature. It is almost I'm trying to figure out how best to describe it. It's almost like a mullet hawk or a Mo mullet. It is getting that aerodynamic. But having a guy like Gardner Minshew there to help set the table for him probably could help out early on when it comes to what we're looking at from Jacksonville. But yeah, the biggest thing, protect your investment. Think of this as a business. If you're a CEO, how do you protect your investment? Get him an offensive line.
So with Trevor Lawrence earmarked for Jacksonville, whose hair has its own Twitter account.
Yeah.
And now Gardner Minshew with his coif and the stash.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Mm-hmm.
a fashion statement there in Jacksonville.
What that statement is, I have no idea.
Yeah. At least they'll win the title for best hair in the NFL.
Yes.
Guys, we talked enough in the first block of the show. What do you say we take the halftime break here?
Yeah, Wilkie's got to go find his book. So take us to break.
And when we come back in the second half of the show, we'll talk about the rest of the year of the quarterback, who could go where, who the biggest movers, the biggest shakers are in the NFL draft. All that and more when we return for the second half of the review. You are listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
The OSG app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. Install the OSG app and listen to our podcasts from college football, soccer, and lacrosse. What are you waiting for? Download the OSG app today.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
I must break you.
Thanks for sticking around, folks. You have made it to the second half of the review. It's the Online Sports Guys College Football Podcast featuring us, the Online Sports Guys. OSG Nelson here, John Wilkerson here, OSG Phil here. We are talking college football, and in this case, the NFL Draft, which involves college football players. First half of the show, we kind of set the table up a little bit. We didn't really get into a lot of detail about this year's draft just because we kind of wanted to air our thoughts about what we think the whole thing's.
The airing of the grievances.
The airing of the grievances, if you will.
Festivus in April. I love it.
Amen.
It's like playing the Masters in November.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, no kidding. And toward the end of the block, we talked a little bit about the all but guaranteed first pick of the draft, one Mr. Trevor Lawrence, who will become a Jacksonville Jaguar here in just a couple of weeks. But the big overarching theme of the draft this year.
Oh, wait, Wilkie found his book.
Oh, Wilkie found his book.
4th and Goal
Every day. Oh,
Phil Savage.
It's by Phil Savage. It's more about how they evaluate talent at University of Alabama with Nick Saban. But, Phil Savage was in the pro football for many years. I think he was the GM of the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
And, it's a lot of Gil Brandt influence with how Nick Saban evaluates talent. Very NFL-like. And when we talked at the top of the show about the minutia and the attention to detail, pick up this book because it'll tell you the detail that they pay attention to, and it'll just boggle your mind. And if you're into the stuff like I am, it's a great read.
Now, speaking of minutia, this is the part where we start parsing quarterbacks because it's expected that quarterbacks are going to go at least in the first 3 picks of the draft.
Right.
The general
4.
Possibly 4, but maybe not. We'll get to that in a minute. The general consensus is that the New York Jets, who have the 2nd pick in the draft, are going to take Zach Wilson from BYU.
Oh, I feel so sorry for Zach Wilson.
And what's even funnier about that is they just spent a first-round draft pick 2 years ago on Sam Darnold, who they summarily traded just a few weeks ago to the Carolina Panthers.
Yes.
New York has a tendency to kind of churn people out if you're not ready to live in the fishbowl.
If you stink as a team and you want to blame somebody for it.
Yeah, which may very well have been the case there with Sam Darnold, who's a pretty talented athlete, but never really had a chance because he had zero surrounding cast.
Zero.
Do you like the Wilson pick? Is he the best out of the bunch after Trevor Lawrence?
For me, I think that if it's Zach Wilson or Justin Fields or Trey Lance, I think it just depends on what kind of quarterback you're looking for. Are you looking for the absolute gunslinger that Zach Wilson is? Are you looking for the dual threat of Justin Fields, or are you looking for someone who's a bit larger than the average bear that can handle the drop back passing game, but it isn't afraid to tuck and run when he needs to? So I think it's just going to come down to feel and to the surrounding weapons that you're going to allegedly give this quarterback. So, honestly, I could sit here and take a 3-sided coin and could tell you it just depends on what the Jets do when they flip it. But I know that Zach Wilson is the number 2 right now. But for me, Wilkie, could be any one of those 3 guys that we're going to be talking about in short order.
Yeah, and I, to be honest with you, I like Zach Wilson. And if I were the Jets, I would go for it as well. he's got a lot of Brett Favre in him, and but he's a little more controlled than Brett Favre was. He's not going to, especially when he was young. For most of the nation, people's impression of Zach Wilson was that game against Coastal Carolina.
Right.
And yeah, and it was, Coastal was a pretty stout defense, but he's done that when he's healthy. And that's the other issue about Zach Wilson. He's had some shoulder issues in the past, but when he's healthy, I think he's as good as any quarterback it was in college football. He's just a different skill set. He's a guy that'll take some chances. He can throw the deep ball. It's just the accuracy issues there. But I think it's a valid point about, can a kid like Zach Wilson, who spent the last 4 years in Provo, Utah, how's he going to transition into New York? And I think he's a pretty mature kid. But New York's a different animal. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Now, it is the New York Jets, and you always have to have that factor too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But look, if they feel this is their franchise quarterback, I don't see where they could go wrong. I think it's a good, solid
Jets.
pick.
That's where they
I know, and I've already said that it's the Jets.
He's the best fit for what they
Exactly.
need. He's the best fit.
Exactly. Now, what kind of coaching is he going to get with the Jets? That's the thing. Their quarterback coach,
It's
Rob Calabrese. He's not bad. I like the fact that their passing game specialist is Greg Knapp. He's got several years in the league. So if he gets the coaching, it may turn out to be a great pick for the Jets, but he needs some people surrounding him. Offensive line, great running backs, some receivers, a tight end. And that's where the Jets have got to address those issues. And it is the Jets.
Yes, it is. I mean, your weapons are Jamison Crowder, Corey Davis. You're looking at Josh Doctson, who we all know from his time at TCU. But for me, keeping him upright, or you're going to be hearing. It's going to be interesting conversations that are going to be picked up on the parabolic mics this season with Zach Wilson if he's with the Jets. Any quarterback who's with the Jets, it's going to be interesting conversation.
And then we go down to number 3, which after some trading around is going to end up being the San Francisco 49ers. And we've heard from them anything from Fields to possibly Lance.
Yeah.
Or even Mac Jones from Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah. Almost nobody thinks is going to be a top 3 pick quarterback.
No.
But yet they think he could end up being in San Francisco, partnered up with Kyle Shanahan. Jones has had nothing but success at Alabama.
How many other quarterbacks can you say that about, though, who translated that into success in the National Football League?
And that's what I was going to get to next, is how is that going to translate to the next level? Because by all reports, he's only an average at best athlete with a decent arm, but he's smart. He knows how to read defenses. He knows how to react to defenses. He knows where to knows the right place to put the ball at the right time. And the question is that going to translate to the NFL, or to the 49ers, who already have Jimmy Garoppolo in-house with a lot of money, stick to their guns and trying to get somebody like Lance, who's going to need another year or two maybe to develop?
That could be an option, but I think Kyle Shanahan's infatuated with Mac Jones. Comes from a program that wins. It's like Trevor Lawrence. And he only had 1 year as a starting quarterback. And, what did he do? Won a national title. Played in the SEC.
But you can't import the entire Tuscaloosa roster to San Francisco to help him out.
Exactly. But he had NFL caliber receivers. He had a really good tight end. And he had an NFL caliber running back in his backfield. So I think there's some infatuation there Kyle Shanahan has with Mac Jones. Now, that brings up a question to me that I want to throw out to the group, because it looks like Alabama is going to corner the market in the first round.
Yes.
If you look at these mock drafts, who is the best Alabama player in the first round? Who would be the one you would take in the first round of the draft? I know my answer on that one.
Yeah, probably Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
He's not the biggest physical specimen in the world. He's not the single fastest guy in the field. All he does is make plays, and he's a great kid that everybody thinks the world of. Although you can make that same argument about Najee Harris, but I would say one of those two.
Yeah, no, I was with Phil with Devontae Smith, but do you go after Jalen Waddle? I mean, see, you're talking about Smith, Waddle, Surtain, Mac Jones, Najee Harris, and Alex Leatherwood. Four skill positions, a corner, and a tackle that are all probably going to go in the first round. So
what you need.
Yeah, and so I'm going with either Smith or Waddle, and just for the sake of argument, since you said Devontae Smith, I'll go Jalen Waddle.
See, to me, it's Najee Harris for me, because in the National Football League, if you've got a running back that has size and speed and still has a lot of tread still left on the tire,
yeah,
that's worth its weight in gold, because even though the running back position has been somewhat devalued in the NFL, when you have that element, you can go a long way. Look at the Cowboys with Ezekiel Elliott. I think one of the big reasons why the Cowboys have been as good as they have been is because he's been that home run hitter, that X factor that has really made Dak Prescott look like a great quarterback. And, I see in the mock drafts that Najee Harris has been earmarked to your Miami Dolphins.
Uh-huh.
And I think that would be an excellent choice for the Dolphins. And then you got Tua back there. You've got half the Crimson Tide back there in your backfield.
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw the devil's advocate position out here. The theory in the prevailing theory of late in the NFL is you don't need to spend a first round pick on a running back because there'll be really good ones available later if you want to wait.
True.
I hear that, but the Dolphins, they have multiple first round picks.
Yeah, because they're looking at Kyle Pitts.
Right.
They're looking at Kyle Pitts, who is a problem at number 6.
Oh, yes.
I'm not sure Kyle Pitts gets to the Dolphins at 6.
So basically what you're
that's
thinking,
where the drama comes in.
Yeah, see, this is what we're getting into, and obviously we get into that in subsequent weeks, is that, does Kyle Pitts drop? Because, if the Bengals picked him at 5, that would, that gives Joe Burrow a weapon.
Watch out for the Falcons.
Well, yeah, if the Falcons...
If they keep that 4th pick.
Right, and I think that if the Falcons deal the 4th pick, somebody really wants Kyle Pitts, and whoever wants Kyle Pitts can grab him at 4, but the Falcons can name their price to get somebody like Kyle Pitts. For the Dolphins, you drop down and you get other talents. But no, I think that to Wilkie's point, if you end up with a Najee Harris in the backfield with Tua Tagovailoa, I think that gives you, young, skilled players that can be there for a while. No, I understand Wilkie's point completely, but I think the Dolphins can make some waves overall with their positioning, the mocks, adding 1 and 1 together, and getting somebody to trade up and possibly figure out what you want to do. If you're the Dolphins at 6, you might have to come up with, maybe you end up with Devontae Smith if you're the Dolphins at 6, if somebody wants Kyle Pitts really badly at 4. And so I think that it's an interesting skill position quest for the Dolphins in this draft when it comes to Alabama players.
Yeah, and I go back to the running back position because, I agree that it's an interchangeable position anymore. But when you have someone as special as Najee Harris, I think you go for him in the first round because that's an Emmitt Smith type of running back. And yeah, by the time he's 30, he's probably going to be beat up and maybe he can only give you a 100-yard game here and there. But by then, he's probably had a Hall of Fame career, and he might have been fitted for a couple of Super Bowl rings. That's the kind of difference maker I think he could be at that position, especially when he's as talented and again, he doesn't have a whole lot of tread off the tires. He's still got a lot of mileage to go. And so if you're Dolphins, get it, Phil. Enjoy. Get his jersey.
I'm not going to go through the entire list of the NFL teams and what they're going to do in the draft, but I did want to touch on one other team before we kind of move along here, and that's the Atlanta Falcons. And I do that only because they sit at number 4, and they've got multiple directions that they could go. It's a team in need of players pretty much everywhere on the field.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they've got guys that can hold down the fort if they want to accumulate draft picks down the line. I mean, yeah, they could sit there at 4 and take Pitts.
But they have more issues than just getting one skill position player. And I think that by trading down, you can address a lot of that. And I know that a lot of folks were saying that if there were no trades at number 4, that the Falcons could pick up Penei Sewell, the big tackle out of Oregon, who'd be there to help protect your quarterback, whoever it is, over the next handful of years. But with all of the problems the Falcons have, with all of the gaps they have in their roster and all the holes that they need to fill, I think the best thing for the Falcons to do is take that as a resource at number 4 and trade down and get what you can for it.
Well, it begs the question, who is it that'd be willing to step up and give them what they want in order to have a chance to get, say, Justin Fields or Trey Lance at number 4 or make it 4 quarterbacks to start the bidding?
Could be the Broncos who want Trey Lance. Could be a team that wants Kyle Pitts. There are those guys. I mean, because the wide receivers, you look at Chase, Smith, and Waddle, who are all slated to go top 10. And then you're looking at, okay, which one of them do I get? I don't think that if you're looking for a wide receiver, you're going to be that team. I think that you're looking for a specialty, and that's why I think that if it's somebody who wants Trey Lance badly at 4, someone who wants Kyle Pitts badly at 4. So is it Denver? Is it Miami with that second pick? Is there trading up and trading around? Is it Miami? Is it Denver? I think that, is it is it the Patriots? Because if the Patriots are locked in to get Mac Jones, do they get him there? Does San Francisco try to figure out something and, try to figure something out and trying to get Mac Jones at 3? Who wants Justin Fields then if Mac Jones goes 3 to San Francisco? Wilkie, there's a lot of stuff in play here where the desire for Mac Jones is there, the desire for Justin Fields is there, and the desire for Kyle Pitts is there, if not Trey Lance. So any one of the teams that's looking at those 4 guys, I think, would be the guy who trades to 4.
Yeah, we're in Atlanta, so we know about all the woes of the Falcons, and I'm sure there's fans around here who'd like to see them stay there and get an impact player. I'm just not sure if there's that impact player is there at 4 for a team like the Falcons, who needs multiple impact players. And I really like the fact that trading down and getting more value and warm bodies that can play on Sunday would be a better play at that number. So might as well trade down. You mentioned the Patriots. That's a team that really needs to make a splash at the quarterback position. And with all the talented quarterbacks that are coming out, who is Bill Belichick infatuated with? Is it Mac Jones? Is it Justin Fields? I would be shocked if it's the Patriots that do the deal with Atlanta. And it wouldn't surprise me if Atlanta makes the pick for the Patriots and then they announce the trade on down the line on the draft. I think it's like one of those last minute deals, in my opinion. But that's a very tasty carrot that the Falcons are dangling right now to other teams who want a quarterback or a wide receiver. I would tend to think that those clubs that are in need of a quarterback will probably risk more future there than a wide receiver, because I think that's a more valuable position, the quarterback position. And with so many good ones out there right now, I think a team that's leading quarterback is going to take that trade.
And it's funny, we talked in the first half of the show about all the weird things and the hype and the buildup goes into the NFL draft. And then we just proceeded to go in and hype everything up going into the NFL draft.
That's what we're here for, brother.
But that's, to me, that's kind
How
of
should we have played it?
it kind of makes it a little bit fun to me because it's mostly speculation.
Yeah, I know.
It's
It's the
really just
futures
guessing.
market. If you're trading, it's the futures market.
Mhm.
It's what you're doing. And you can't guard against a season-ending or a career-ending injury, or the fact that the adjustment from the college to pro football. Who can do that? There's been those stories where first-round picks have come in and just don't want to put in the work, and it's work to be a professional football player. I mean, it's a grind. It's 17 games. It's a couple of preseason games. It's training camp.
So
It's
year-round.
mini camps,
It's learning the playbook.
learning the playbook, exact film study. I mean, your life is consumed about football, and some guys want to go out and party and uh, get the endorsements and all that good stuff, but
Yep.
you got to put in the work and do the grind. And who's willing to do that? And can they forecast that? So, yeah, it's the futures market.
With that being said, one little thing I want to hit on here as we wrap up our NFL draft preview talk and discussion.
Version 1.
Yes, couple quick college football notes. Spring games.
I've heard of those.
Some of the big boys have their spring games here over this past couple weeks, and looking ahead for another week or two as we record this. Kind of getting back into the swing of things here with a normal college football rhythm as we go spring games, and then after that, just a couple months, we're talking about a countdown into fall practice, and then we're playing college football again.
Well, and here's where Wilkie gets to talk about Bobby Petrino.
Yes, I was leading into that.
Yeah. Although this pains me to say it, I got to tip my hat to Bobby Petrino because he took over my alma mater, Missouri State, and the Bears won their first conference championship, the Missouri Valley Conference Championship, at least a share of the conference championship on Saturday with a win over Youngstown State. First conference title in 31 years. You're going back to when I was in school there, back when DeAndre Smith was our quarterback. So I've got to tip my hat to Bobby Petrino. First year, he's got the Bears winning a Missouri Valley Football Conference championship.
Nobody ever said the guy couldn't coach football. His issue's always been off the field.
Mm-hmm.
As he's not been exactly I'm trying to find a diplomatic way to say this.
No.
He's kind of an ass off the field.
There you go.
Well, if you watched his post-game presser, he was quite giddy in the Bobby Petrino type way of giddiness. But he was cracking a smile and somewhat giddy. So, hey, he's got the Bear. Hey, we'll find out in a few days if the Bears make it to the FCS playoffs. So I'll be watching.
Like I said, the guy can coach offensive football. I mean, every team he's ever been involved with has lit up the scoreboard at every level in college football. That's never been the issue with him. The issue has been his lack of ability to connect pretty much with any other human being.
Are you my pal, Mr. Scholarship winner?
Yeah, between the ears.
Well, I mean, he's at a university now. It's been a basketball university. It was when I was there. And the basketball teams had their struggles now, too. So maybe he's got football in the forefront in Springfield, Missouri. But we'll see. I hope they get in the playoffs, make a nice little run, be a great story. And I can wear my maroon around here.
And a final tip of the hat to me to University of Wisconsin Athletic Director Barry Alvarez, who steps away after 31 years. Many of those years as the head football coach for the Badgers. He leads one of the nation's best athletic departments, best run athletic departments. He's been a leader in NCAA sports for decades. Job well done for Mr. Alvarez. Glad to see him getting to enjoy himself and not have to worry so much about work. One of the legends of the game.
Salute. Well done. A lot of trophies behind him in that promo photo that they released upon his retirement. So that speaks a lot to what Coach Alvarez did for the folks up there in Wisconsin.
I was around Frank Broyles for many years, and Valerie Alvarez always reminded me of Coach Broyles, the way he coached football and the way he ran an athletic department, even to the point where he kind of meddled in football, as Coach Broyles did as well. But think about where Wisconsin was before he took over as head football coach, and where he leaves that athletic program in general. I mean, they've always had a solid hockey program, but the men's basketball program has been Big Ten contenders since on his watch, and everything just has improved in Madison since he's been there. So he leaves the program at a great level.
One of the legends of the game, probably a Hall of Famer. Guys, what do you say we wrap up this episode?
Wrap it up.
Covered a lot of ground here in the last 50-plus minutes. All things NFL draft, college football related, and all that other stuff. So for OSG Nelson, for John Wilkerson, I am OSG Phil. We are the Online Sports Guys. This is our college football podcast, The Review. We hope to be back here again in a couple of weeks, or in Wilkie's case, after he's done with whatever his daughter just distracted him with.
Yeah, the dogs or whatever. So.
Don't forget, you can find all of our content here. If you're watching this, you're seeing us on YouTube at OSG Sports. You can find all of our content there, plus on social media at OSG Sports on both Facebook and Twitter. You can download our app. It is free, as John is flashing that app in front of you on his telephono. You can find it both in the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. I think I've hit all the promotional items here, guys. Wilkie is back with us just in time to say goodbye to all our family. OSG, say goodbye to everybody. Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Review. You can find this and past shows by downloading the OSG Sports app on your mobile device. And enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.